Slow robot, okay. Today we are back to some creative stuff, and specifically I want to do some work with blocks. Um, I know a lot of the stuff I've talked about in the past here has been around trying to be creative and kind of get past creative blocks and that kind of thing. And that's exactly what we're going to try and use blocks to do today. So what are we going to do here? So basically, I think I have a pretty easy way to kind of unstick ourselves from, finding when we find ourselves in a place where we can't seem to generate any cool new ideas. We're sort of rehashing the same kind of things that we usually do, that sort of thing. So the the idea here is really kind of make it so that when you're creating something, you're not feeling the pressure to come up with something brand new all the time. What you can do is react. So what do I mean by that? Reacting to something else that's already there makes it a lot easier for us to create something new. And so, for example, if you listen to your favorite record, or if you're playing in a band and you've got friends, who are showing you ideas and stuff, and you're bouncing ideas off of each other, that's all reaction, right? So if you're listening to your favorite record and you're noodling around on your guitar or you're plinking around on your piano, you can come up with ideas because you have sort of a familiarity with what's there already, and enough of a familiarity with the instrument that you can start to kind of go outside the bounds a little bit and come up with some new ideas. And so that's really what we're going to do here. It's kind of a way to create for yourself at an individual level, something to play off of. So not everybody has a band full of members that are bouncing ideas off of each other. If you're working by yourself, you can still do it. You can still kind of react to stuff that's already there, that you can use to kind of use that as a springboard to move to the next idea. And so how does that relate to blocks? So what we're going to do is we're going to take an idea that's either brand new or something that you've already got, and we're going to take it and we're going to put it into a block. That's going to be the first step. And then what we're going to do is we're going to start to iterate through different ideas around what you have in that block. So basically what it'll be is we'll take that block, and so this will be basically everything that you have in your idea toolbox, your starting point, and you're going to take out one or two pieces from what you have there, and you're going to fill them back in, but you're going to fill them back in with something that you haven't come up with yet. This is the creative process. And so once you do that, you're going to have this new block, which is going to have the kind of core of your original idea, with a couple elements taken out and a couple new elements in it. And then you're going to take that, and then you're going to do the same thing over again. You're going to take that part, you're going to copy that and put it into a new block. And then you're going to take something out of that and you're going to replace it with something else. So as we go through this, you're going to see that over time, the idea is going to start to morph from one thing to something different. It's sort of like that old game where you get a bunch of people to sit around a table and you whisper something to the person to the right in their ear, and they whisper the same thing that you said to them to the person to their right, and you have to go around the table until it gets back to you. And when it gets back to you, what you end up hearing is completely different than what you said in the first place. So it's kind of that's what I mean by iterating. You're just kind of taking it and you're tweaking it a little bit, and then you're kind of going through this process of just kind of moving through different ideas and trying to do so pretty quickly. And the idea being to get as much out there as you can. And again, to end up in a different spot than you started. And, that's going to give you more ideas that you can work with. So that's kind of the basic gist of what we're going to do. So I'll kind of show you what I've started with, and then we'll get into some basic block stuff, and then we'll actually get into the meat of how I'll show an example of how this can work over time. So what you see in Reason right here is a chunk of song. So I pulled this out of my main sequence. So if anyone is unfamiliar with blocks, I strongly recommend you familiarize yourself with blocks because they're awesome. And I'll give some tips and some of the basic ideas along the way, so you can hopefully get through a lot of this without having to necessarily like watch a separate tutorial or something. But so this is the main sequence view, right? This is what everybody's used to seeing when they first open Reason. Got my whole song in here, and what I did is I just cut up this piece here, and I moved it, I copied it, and if you hit the B on your keyboard, the B is what takes you into blocks mode. Important point though, you have to make sure that it is turned on. So in your options menu, under enable blocks, it has to be checked. So that's first things first. Turn that on, and then again I came in here, and you can tell it's in blocks mode because you can see you've got the giant colored thing up here, and it just tells you which block you're in. There are, I believe, I want to say 32 blocks here. Yeah, 32 blocks that you can choose from and work with. But anyway, I pulled the part, I pasted it in here, and so this is going to be my starting point, right? This is just a groove that I had. I think I actually shared this in another earlier video a couple weeks ago. Just a basic kind of groove with some interesting stuff I did. I was able to come up with on bass, guitar, and complex, and just a string thing. So I'll play a little bit of it so you can get a flavor for this is the starting point. So that's a basic idea. That's going to be our starting point. And that's sound you hear is going to gradually fade away. But anyway, so this is our starting point. And what we're going to do now is, so we're going to keep this as is. We're not going to touch this block any further. So I'm going to just copy all this stuff again, and we're going to actually put this into the next block. So we're going to put that here. Now we've got a second block to work with. So this is the same stuff, same information, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to start taking out some stuff. So I think I don't want to have the guitar, so I'm going to pull the guitar out, and I think I want to take out the strings and the synth. And the strings and the synth are playing the same thing. They're just obviously different instruments. So I'm going to take both of those out. So now all I have right now are the beat and my bass line. And that's going to be my starting point for this. So that's basically how this is going to go. Each time we finish one kind of iteration, one block, we're going to kind of do this same kind of process. We're going to copy what we end up with into the next block, take out some stuff that we feel. And this is the thing, you don't need to overthink it. Really just kind of follow your gut. You know, if you want to pull out the drums, fine. If you're feeling really strongly that you need to leave that guitar line in there, then leave the guitar line in there. If you don't care either way, then just pull something random out and do something different. Like, you don't have to, it's the point is to get some ideas out there, so it's not, you know, you don't overthink it, really, is kind of the best advice that I can give. So we have blocks turned on. We're in our second block here already, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to I have my guitars back behind me. I have all this, you know, stuff I can possibly do in Reason in front of me, and so I'm going to start kind of just going through some ideas. So this first one we're going to do together, and I'm going to grab my guitar, and I don't know what this sounds like just yet, but we're going to find out, and just kind of plugged it in. Let's get this nice. It's got some shimmer on it, which I always love on guitar. So right now what I'm going to do is play this back, and I'm just going to try and kind of come up with some ideas on the guitar here. So here we go. Let me make sure this is enabled to listen back. So I already have something that I kind of like, and again, we don't want to overthink this, so I kind of like that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this into record ready mode, and I'm just going to see what you get. And I want to try and keep this simple. All right, it's not too bad. And again, you know, I'm not looking for perfection here. I'm just trying to come up with some ideas. So that was kind of cool. There were some weird notes in there, but this is where it gets kind of interesting too, is that you don't need to worry so much about your note choices. You're looking more for feel and more to find something that's not there already. So so that's what I'm trying to do, more so than necessarily adhering exactly to what's already there. So I like this. It sounds kind of cool. Now I'm going to move on. So I'm happy with this, and I'm going to keep doing this. So I'm going to kind of stop the video, do a new idea, and then keep showing each piece of the puzzle along the way as I work, and then kind of give just a overview of what I have done, and then we'll start to put everything back together towards the end of the video. So I will stop this for now, and we will come back with my next idea momentarily. All right, and so I have a new track in here. I took out the bass for this new iteration, and I replaced it with a new bass line. So let's just take a listen to what I did. So that's a pretty simple bass line. Just replace the old one, and kind of interesting. Different, use a weird guitar patch, and just sounds good with the bass through it, so went with it. And that's another thing that you want to kind of do is I wouldn't spend too much time worrying about sound design and that kind of stuff. Get something that works for you, something that speaks to you, that you're interested in playing at that, you know, you're in the moment enjoying hearing, but don't spend a whole lot of time you know, tweaking sounds to get exactly what you have in your head, because that's not what the point is. It's really, we're trying to create some ideas. So don't spend too much time, you know, creating new soundscapes and that kind of thing. So let's move on to the next one. I will copy all this stuff, and we will take it into our third changed block. So we'll paste that in there, and I'm going to do the same thing. I shall return. All right, next section done. So what I did here is I actually took I made a couple of changes here. So this kind of goes in line with the whole, you know, follow your gut kind of thing. So I decided I wanted to do a different beat, so I pulled out or I muted the original beat up here and replaced it with something quite a bit different. And I left the bass alone, and I decided when I listened to the beat, the new beat with the guitar part, that I didn't really care for the guitar part, so how it was sitting in there. So I made the decision to just mute it. So this is what it would have sounded like. Let's mute. Yeah, so this is just what it would have sounded like had I left the guitar part in there, and no, I added a synth also, but we're not going to listen to that just yet. So this is what it sounds like. So it's pretty simple beat, but a bit different than the original beat. And again, I don't think the guitar really sits too well on that new beat. So I muted it, and I called an audible and decided I wanted to add something different here. I had a thought in my head of like a synth kind of doing like a really staccato thing, and so I did that. So I used some players for that. Obviously it's not finished product. It sounds pretty close to what I had in my head, but you know, again, didn't spend a whole lot of time, you know, messing around with different sounds. Just kind of came up with something that was kind of what I was looking for, and tweaked it from there really quickly, and then added some players on there to get it to do what I wanted it to do, more or less. So again, just the idea is here. So we're ready to move on to the next part. All right, we did another one. We have a similar thing, kept the same drums that I just did in the last iteration, and this time I replaced the bass with another new bass line. So let's put that there, and I kept that same kind of bouncy synth thing in there. So now this is what we have. that's basically it. So now I'm pretty happy with what I've done from the perspective of coming up with new parts. I could keep going, and the longer you do this, the more kind of blocks you create this way, the farther from what you started you will end up, and that can be a really cool thing. But I'm gonna not torture you with that. But what I will do is, now that I have a bunch of ideas, I've got 5 different ideas. I have the original idea and then kind of iterations through from there. I have a bunch of different stuff that I can work on. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back through what I just did with each of those sections, and I'm going to kind of tweak it a little bit. I'm going to fill it out, find some other stuff, maybe add some stuff, maybe even take out some more stuff. Just kind of feel through it, make some adjustments, and then we'll come back. So I will do that now. Okay, so I have gone through and added some additional stuff to each of the different parts. So I'll go through that real quick. This first changed part, I just added a little, I think I just added a little bit of guitar. So here that is. That's all I added. Just a little bit of flavor there. Okay, and then the next section, let's see, what did I do here? Okay, so I took out the hi-hat pattern, the little cymbal pattern that was going on in the drums, and I replaced it basically with a percussion, just a stock percussion thing from loop from I don't even know what this thing is called. I never use it. A Dr. Octorex pattern, and I also added a couple of notes in with the synth that I already had on the song. So that sounds like this now. Those 2 little notes there. Cool. All right, and then so one thing to note here, when you do, this is one of the cool things about using blocks. Once we get to the point where we're putting these blocks together, this automation that I wrote in here for the complex patch, that's going to follow it wherever it goes. So when I start working in the block, this is going to loop with just right alongside this. It's always going to sound exactly the same. And, I don't have to worry about copying and pasting automation along with it, because it just automatically follows everything else that's going on. So that's one of the cool features about using blocks. Anyway, so let's keep going here. And this one, what did I do? So this one, I just put a weird delay effect on my guitar. So it's just I basically just made it I played one chord and then it just holds out the sound. So and I kind of just turned it into a pad sound, and then I added a pump to that, so it gives it a little bit of movement. You can see the pump here. So this is what that sounds like. So that's all that is. And then let's go to the last section. Okay. And this one, what did I do here? I added some extra guitar. That's pretty much it here. So here's what that sounds like. Two guitar tracks, I think. So just a strumming guitar and a little bit of a, I don't know, weird lick thing going on there. But that's it. So now what we can do, let's say we've done this, we were happy with all the stuff we've done to this point. Now we can get to the point where we're actually starting to put this together into a sequence that actually makes some kind of musical sense. So I'm going to flip back. Now we're going to hit B and we're going to come back to our main sequence here. Now I'm going to move all this stuff. We don't need any of this in, we don't need this here. So we're just going to drag this over here so we can have some space. Okay, so let's start by just adding some stuff. Now, some more basics on using blocks. If you're not familiar, the way to actually get blocks to come into your normal sequence view is to use the pencil tool. And you see over here we have pattern, loop and block and time signature, all this stuff. And we can just come in here and choose which one we want to draw in. So right now we're going to start with the main one, the one that we started off with. So this is not changed from what it was. And let's just draw that in there. And so if you see, as I drag this out, you see this line here, that just represents a repetition. So that finishes, that's one full repetition of that part. And then that line indicates where it would start to loop. So now if we go back into our block for that, so you see where this end indicator is, this E that I just moved. I'll move there we go. So that is the indication of where that loop is going to start and stop when you're in like the normal sequence mode. So for instance, if I pull this in here and then I come back, you'll see it shifted. Let's pull that back because we want it to loop in the same spot that it was. And so now it's way back out here. So that's how you set the loop length and how that translates into the normal mode, or the normal sequencer mode. So one thing I want to do here, I want to keep this so that I'm always having this, you see this guitar in here. I'm just going to drag this in so that I'm only, now I could do this in the block view and just do it that way, but I'm going to do it this way because it just kind of shows you some of the flexibility you have with blocks. You can drag your start and stop points and shift stuff around as you need to get it to do what you want. So, so again, we're going to just play that just like this. Just to kind of refresh your memory of what that is. And then we're going to come in and we're going to do basically the same thing. We're just going to draw in each of these sections. So actually, before I do that, what I do want to do is I want to come back into the each of these actually, and I do want to actually edit the length because I think these are double the length that I would like them to be. So let's make these 8 bars each. This one already is, so I don't need to do that. This one is already also, and I think this one is, oh, it is. Okay, cool. So we should be good to go. So again, we can keep drawing in here. So we're going to do our next block, and then you see where it loops. Let's just do one of those as well. Now I'm going to start okay, I went back to the normal selection tool. Now if I just control and drag these out just to get multiples in here, what I can do, as you see these have these down arrows, you can switch to the whichever, use those to switch whichever block you want to use. Chose the wrong one there, and then this one to this. Okay, so quickly get sort of a layout going. It's just obviously very straightforward, but let's listen to this. So before I do that, actually, let me just drag this out. I'm going to copy all this. So what I want to do, what I'm going to listen for is continuity. So the one of the cool things about doing this particular kind of exercise is that because you're only tweaking one or two things each iteration you go through, your overall kind of vibe isn't going to change too drastically. It will change over time, but it should be fairly compatible from start to finish. So when it gets to this point here and we hear this new first part come back in, it shouldn't sound too drastic from this. It should sound fairly consistent. Well, I could be wrong. We'll see. But that's part of the fun of it, right? So let's listen through this, and we'll just listen through just to see what that transition sounds. Still has the same kind of vibe, but different feel, very different feel. So it's kind of interesting. Doesn't always transition well, but that's something we can work on later. Again, this is more for ideas. Up the beat. Let's see what this sounds like when it comes back. Consistent. So you can see, like right off the bat, it's you got a bunch of different ideas in here that you can now pick and choose from. And so again, this isn't like to craft something that's finished right out of the gate. You want this just to kind of spark some ideas and keep moving forward, and kind of it's really useful to not get it keeps you from kind of thinking too much about where you're at, because you're kind of like, oh, I'm here now, but I'm also going to be, you kind of know that you're going to be in a different place in a minute and in a few minutes anyway. So you're not so focused on like the minutia of doing your, crafting your sounds and like, oh, my timing's off here or whatever. You're really just trying to get it out. You're trying to get it out as much as possible. So now as far as using blocks for this, so obviously the benefit of blocks is that these are, we can kind of move these around and see what different kind of ordering sounds like. So let's see what this transition sounds like. Again. That's nice and smooth, kind of cool. So I like it that way. I mean, again, because you're using stuff that has some consistency, you're only changing one bit here and there. It has that kind of flow. It's a lot easier to keep it into a certain flow without, making something jarring and strange, which can be cool too. And I'll probably do videos about that in the future, but yeah, so that's one of the cool things about blocks, is just being able to quickly move around entire sections. Really good for kind of figuring out your structure, your song structures and that kind of thing. But and again, just to reiterate what I was mentioning before, so this automation that I did on the complex, I moved this block over, and that automation followed along with all the rest of the stuff. So, you don't have to worry about any of the stuff becoming unglued from what it's supposed to be with. And that works not just with automation on like volume and pan, but it also works with stuff with if you're doing time signature changes or tempo changes. And it's really helpful for that, especially if you got a really kind of complex arrangement and you need to move like a lot of stuff without screwing up the time signature or whatever kind of changes you have in there. It can be really helpful for that. But that is that. And then another one of the cool things about blocks is that you can, if you cut these up using the razor tool, let's do that. Let's just cut this guy into these blocks there. So now what we can do is we can mute parts or sections, like subsections within this block. So I can, if I don't want that complex to come in well, that's a bad example because there's only a couple notes in there. But if I only want like one of the two guitars to come in at first and then have it switch over, I can do that, and then they both play. Maybe do something like this. So it's super easy to do that. You just mute the one you want with the mute tool, like I just did. Am I even hearing that? Oh, that's the bass. That's why I'm confused. But yeah, you can bring stuff in and out, and that's why you want to kind of take that second step of going back and going through and adding some extra stuff, because then it gives you even more options, because you can do this kind of thing where you're dropping out the bass for the first 4 bars, and then the bass comes in, and you're kind of subdividing things around. So and then lastly, I promise this isn't going to be a 4-hour video. We can bring all this stuff, or not even bring all this stuff in. If we just click on one, right click on one, and convert block clips to song clips, you'll see it pulls in the clips as it says. And then what you can do from here is you can drag this stuff around. So again, because we kept it very consistent overall, I would expect that some of this stuff we could move into other sections of the song and have it still sound cool. So like, let's try, I don't want to do it in the first section because the first section is pretty much the most filled out of all of them, but let's do that. And I'm going to mute, I'll mute this guitar. Actually, no, this is what I'll do. I'll come in and we will split this in half. And we will mute the guitar for the first half, and then I'll do the same thing with this clip that we pulled in, and I'll just mute this for the second half. So now it'll go from one to the other. So let's take a listen to that. Not terrible. You could do something with that. It's a weird kind of thing that you could do. Obviously I would want to kind of clean up the transition there, but again, this is kind of more about just generating ideas and getting a starting point for some new things that you that you wouldn't have gotten because you're just having trouble coming up with new ideas. So yeah, this is pretty much it. It's a pretty that was a really lengthy explanation and demonstration, but it's a really simple actual thing to do. Once you do it a couple times, it's pretty quick, pretty easy, and you can come up, like I said, you can come up with a thousand new ideas. And again, it's the more iterations you do, the further afield you're going to get from where you started. And you may want to do this for 3 or 4 hours at a time, and just really see how far you can get away from the original part, and then see if when you do get to the point where it's looping back to the original part, does it still sound cohesive? And if it does, that's awesome. And if it doesn't, that's an opportunity to maybe find a way to get it to sound cohesive, even though it does sound very disparate. So just give it a shot. I mean, it's, like I said, it's a long video, but it's a simple process to go through, and it should yield some interesting results. But yeah, just don't overthink it. Go in, make some sounds, and move quickly, and see if it works for you. So that's it. Take care.